Welcome, everyone, to our next episode of Wrestling with Our Faith. I'm Chris, and we are here with the great, the wonderful Josh.
Aw, thank you.
You're welcome. I try to build you up.
You're doing a great job.
Well, thank you. So how are you doing today?
Tired still?
Yeah, I understand.
One of these streams, I'm going to have something new to say, and nobody's going to be prepared for it. It's going to be crazy.
Catch them off guard.
Yes.
That's what you got to keep watching so you get caught off guard.
But here's the thing. I'm saying I'm going to do it, but I'm not going to tell you when I'm going to do it.
Exactly. So you got to keep paying attention.
Could be next week.
Keep tuned in.
It could be the week after. No, it's not going to be the week after. But it could be
3 months from now.
Dude.
You never know.
So if I don't stay tired.
Exactly. Yeah, so I feel you though. I'm tired as well. Ready for my vacation. 10 days away. Roughly. 12 week from Saturday.
Exciting stuff.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
It's gonna be great. And can't wait to rest, relax, and just clear my mind. So I do want to say we are up to 41 subscribers.
Oh my goodness.
I know. Like, you guys went on a subscription spree this week. And so that's exciting. I guess you guys got excited about that contest that we got going on. So if you are new and haven't heard about it yet, we have our subscriber contest for a $50 Amazon gift card. You have to go to one of our YouTube videos and subscribe, give it a like, and leave us a comment. Try to leave us something besides, hey, enter me in the contest. I mean, we appreciate you doing the things we asked, but if you could leave us something constructive to the videos, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, regardless of what you put, if you did comment, then you're in the contest.
True. But yes,
it would also be wonderful.
I mean, it benefits us. It benefits you guys because the more feedback we get, to know that we're doing good things good or not so good or whatever, we can make this podcast better for everyone. So that feedback, definitely helps everyone out.
Mm-hmm.
So I encourage everyone to get yourself entered in that contest if you haven't already. We're getting close because once we hit 50 subscribers, we will be making that drawing. So it's potentially going to be maybe next week or the time after that. We'll see. I mean, if we keep going the way we were this week, we can get there pretty quickly. So
yeah.
So make sure you do that. And also, if you want to help us get there quick, share our video. Tell everyone to watch and to subscribe to us and give us a like and a comment. So I say the quicker we can get there, the quicker somebody can win. So you guys are the key to that. We can't get people to subscribe and see our videos. I mean, we do the best we can to get them out there, but you guys are the driving force behind making sure that people see our videos. So
I mean, heck yeah, share it with friends, share it with your family members.
Yeah,
download YouTube on grandma's iPad. I don't know.
Exactly. Sign her up for an account.
Absolutely.
And just say, hey, watch this podcast every week, Grandma. You'd be great.
Don't talk about the Amazon card though. I mean, that put your mailing address down for that. Thanks, Grandma.
Don't deceive Grandma. That's not right. Grandma can get stuff off Amazon too.
Well, yeah, if she has an iPad, probably.
Yeah. She can get one of those fancy digital picture frames, you know, scroll through pictures of the grandkids and all that.
Dogs, cats.
Yeah. See, there's plenty of things grandmas can get on
Facebook.
Yeah. So so make sure you guys go on and get yourself entered in that contest. So hopefully, I mean, I would love it if we could draw next week. That would be amazing. So I'm challenging you guys to share our video and get the word out there so we can draw this next week.
Ooh.
I am laying down the gauntlet.
That's it.
So you got to do it. I have faith that you guys can do this. I have faith. So go and do it, guys. So we're going to continue on our conversation that we had from last week. We got talking about Abraham and I kind of let, Josh brought up some interesting things, and we didn't really get enough time to hash into it. Plus I wanted to make sure that I was able to look into things a little bit deeper and familiarize myself with the entire story of Abraham and all that a little bit more, since it's there's a lot going on there, and it's hard to remember everything from every point of the Bible. So we want to talk about that. Quick note on that. So I have a ministry class, and we were supposed to everyone was supposed to like go through the first 5 books of the Bible and just give the broad points. And there's only like 12, 13 of us in class, so like we just give a couple broad points, no big deal. And then teacher's like, well, what about this? And what about this? And I'm like, those aren't broad points. I'm like scrambling for my Bible. I'm like, okay, let me write this down, write that down. I'm like, apparently she wants to go a little bit deeper than that. And so I'm like, oh my goodness. I just can't stand, I don't mind the class and all that, but I don't like being put on the spot and not being prepared for something, because my mind just draws a blank all the time when I need to use it. And after the class, I'd be like, oh yeah, I remember all this stuff. But when you put me on the spot, yeah, no. So that was just a quick little sidebar.
Recorded podcasts are the way to go.
Exactly. Yeah. So yes, I make sure I'm prepared for my podcast and I'm ready to go. I don't like to just shoot off from the hip. I mean, there's some things I can do that on, but usually those are things that I've been deeply engrossed in, to where I just can recite it in my sleep and that. So, but yeah. So that's my little story on that. But back to the topic. Now we took a little offshoot. So I'm going to give it over to Josh so he can kind of rehash what he was talking about last week, and we can get into it a little bit more.
So Abraham, specifically, I think one of the last portions that he is in, sacrificing of his son Isaac, or almost sacrificing his son Isaac.
Right.
After reading through a lot of it, and you had brought up there being generational sin, you brought up Abram, I think in Egypt, and then
she does it twice.
Yeah, is it Mesopotamia? I don't think so, but it's possible.
No.
There are 2 places.
Yes, but there are 2 places.
Yeah, and he does the same thing.
He basically comes out of Egypt. Yes,
yeah.
And the first place they settle down in, he does the exact same thing, and I was like, man,
it's and the wording around it is so peculiar, because he's like, because of you, I'll be blessed.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like, because of your sacrifice, I'll continue on. And it seems like a really bad situation, except God never punishes Abraham for it. He only punishes the kings and the rulers of these areas.
Mm-hmm. The second time he doesn't really punish Abraham, but he doesn't punish the king either, because the king talks to God and says, hey, wait a minute, I didn't do anything wrong. Mm-hmm. Like, if I would have known, like, this never would have happened. Like, I was told one thing and was going on that. Like, I haven't touched her or anything. And God's like, I know that wasn't in your heart, which is why I made it happen.
I think.
Well, he just made, like, he didn't have relations with Sarah or anything like
Correct,
that.
But
so he
God,
just,
I think God for that second one said, you are infertile at the moment.
Well,
not like punishing like plagues, but
right.
There were consequences for taking her.
There would have been, yes. But because of that, because he said, hey, like, this isn't me. Like, I wouldn't have done that.
Hey, guy, what the heck?
And like, don't be setting me up like that.
Yeah.
Like, that's not who I am. So because of that, God's like, well, your family will not be infertile anymore. And
grant Abraham more gifts, and then Abraham goes on his way.
Right.
So in all of this, Abraham's getting blessed out of, I wouldn't say intentionally, like trying. Well, it kind of was. He knew exactly what was going to happen. I feel like.
Which, when I got in a little bit further, Sarah was his sister. It was his father's daughter, but not his mother's daughter. Yeah. So it was a half sister.
Yeah.
So he wasn't technically lying in that. So and that's why he wasn't punished by God, but he wasn't fully truthful either. I don't know, but it's a really weird situation all the way around in both instances.
I would say I could be okay with the whole, like, hey, here's my sister, except for his kind of general thank you for your sacrifice so that I can be blessed.
Mm-hmm.
The wording around it is so awful. And it's pretty much like she's given to the dogs
Hmm.
so that he can make his getaway.
Yeah.
Which that's
And there's a whole lot more. I mean,
oh yeah.
I really would have to dig deep into cultural norms and all that stuff
Yeah,
to really understand it.
even with Lot and his two daughters, he was willing to sacrifice when the two men of God came down,
Yes.
right?
I
And
know.
Lot is like, okay, men of the city, you can't sleep with these guys, you can't take them and know them. So
Right.
here's my two virgin daughters.
Right. Have your way.
There they are. Take them.
I
And
know.
luckily, the story goes and it doesn't work out. The city, men of the city are blinded. They escape,
Hmm.
but it's still like, okay, man, you just offered up your two daughters, which hospitality as a tradition is very important. And I get that, but
Right.
man,
I say there were cultural norms, which doesn't mean that they're right.
mhm,
Um, but you have to understand some of the times and why that was happening.
yeah,
It was normal. Again, by today's standards, we know we shouldn't be doing that.
mhm,
But again, when you're just used to doing things, that's why it is, and that's why it was done. But yeah,
um,
craziness.
so for Abraham
Hmm.
in the seventh test,
Hmm.
I think you could call it. Um, my thought on that is that we generally assume that the situation went down how it was supposed to go down.
Hmm.
A lot of the wording is like, um, okay, because you believed in God and gave him your son, um, your descendants will be as numerous um, as the stars in the sky.
Hmm.
A lot of like, okay, these things are going to happen because you did what you did.
Right.
But then you read the fine line,
Hmm.
and a lot of the things inside point to him not being as blessed. Even though I think in one of the later chapters it literally says Abraham was blessed
Hmm.
in every way.
Right.
Um, so yeah, takes Isaac up to the mountain. Um, Abraham kind of does the same thing. No, Isaac says the same thing that Abraham says. He says, "Father." Abraham says, "Here I am." Just like when Abraham was talking to God, God said, well,
Hmm.
Abraham said, "Here I am."
Right.
Um, Abraham tells him the sacrifice is God is going to provide the sacrifice,
Right.
and they get there, and then Abraham binds Isaac.
Hmm.
Traditionally, it's been some have thought that Isaac was bound so that he would not, so that he would resist temptation from being sacrificed, so that he could play his part in God's plan. Like he
Hmm.
was fully with it, the flesh was weak, kind of thing.
Right.
So none of that, I don't think any of that relates. I think it's a theory
Hmm.
that people put out there,
Right.
but I think the language that follows after points this to being a very sticky situation.
Hmm.
So you have Isaac who's bound, and Abraham who it says, actually, where are we at here? Abraham being tested. Yeah. I'm in chapter 22 of
Right.
Genesis.
Hmm.
And yeah, number 9, verse 9. When they reached the place God had told him about, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. Then he reached out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. So intentionally, he was all about it. He was like, I'm going to follow through with this. He took it and
Hmm.
was intentional about his actions. And then an angel of the Lord comes and calls out Abraham, Abraham with exclamation points to stop it at the very last second.
Right.
That's usually assumed is like it was part of the plan. To me, it almost sounds like um, that's not what he was exactly expecting. Why would the angel of the Lord like come at the very last second to be like Abraham, Abraham, if God knows his intentions? Now that could be a stretch, but we'll move on for the moment.
Hmm.
So here I am. Do not lay a hand on the boy. Abraham has to check. Who are you? Just making sure, going through the
Right.
motions. And then you see Abraham coming down the mountain, and he only comes down by himself. So then the question is, where's Isaac?
Where does it say that? What verse were you in that said that?
It only states, it's 18, and through your offspring all nations on earth will be blessed because you have obeyed me. 19, then Abraham returned to his servants, and they set off together for Beersheba. And Abraham stayed in Beersheba. Mind you, his wife is in Hebron, which is located they're like next to each other, but they're off.
No, they're a little ways away.
Yeah.
They're one is more towards the south. Beersheba is towards the south, towards the Negev area.
Yeah.
And Hebron is northern, more towards Syria. And when it comes to that, because you're referring to the very next chapter where it talks about Sarah's death, and that's where she was when she died. But we don't know if she was staying there long term when that happened. Was she going to visit family there? Or something like that. So I don't know we can necessarily assume that they were living apart. We can't assume.
Well, we can, because it says that he resides in Beersheba and she resides in Hebron.
It doesn't say that she resides in Hebron. It just says that she was there when she died. But we don't know why she was there. She very well could be. She very well could be living there. She could also be visiting relatives there. She could also. There are many reasons of why she could have been there, besides they were living separated.
Well, on top of that, he also gets married again
after her death.
Mm-hmm.
So that's after her death, and he gets married again, and has more sons. So I mean, it very well could be, but I think it's a little dangerous if we're assuming things that aren't there. I think that's one possibility. Just like when they come down the mountain, that Isaac wasn't with them. I mean, that's one possibility because it doesn't explicitly say Isaac was with them, but I don't think you can assume that he was or wasn't with him.
I feel like, mind you, it was specific in saying that him and Isaac were the only ones that went up. And then it only mentions Abraham coming down.
Right. Because we also don't know at this time what is Isaac's age either. It's always portrayed that Isaac is a young boy when he goes up into the mountain for the sacrifice. But I don't believe it talks about his age at all. Because we get to the very next chapter when Sarah dies and she's 127 years old, and she had Isaac at 100. So this could put Isaac in his teens, in his 20s, when he went up into the mountain with his father. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that we don't know that's going on in this story that I think, we can theorize, we can take our best guess at what it might be. I think it's similar to going back to like creation, where we have our theories, we have our ideas of what might be going on. And none of those necessarily are wrong or whatnot, but I think it's not something that we can just plant our flag in and say, this is exactly what was going on. If you want to say, this is what I believe was going on, it's great. From how you interpret the text, you feel that this is what was happening in the in-between spots. Because another thing that leads me to believe that, because you're kind of alluding that there is, because of the almost sacrifice of Isaac, that there was some ill will potentially, or the relationship between Abraham and Isaac had deteriorated, the relationship between Abraham and Sarah had deteriorated because of this event. And one thing I would say that that would lead me to the contrary of that is, if, say, your father goes to sacrifice you and saying that his God told him to do it, and then he doesn't do it the last second, though, are you going to follow that same God that almost sacrificed you?
That would be pretty rough.
Right. And we see no hiccup in Isaac's faith.
Well, what you don't see is 20 years of his life.
And that's very
The
well
entire,
true.
and mind you, keeping the whole like narrative the same.
Mhm.
The only thing Isaac sees in all of Genesis is betrayal.
Mhm.
Even with his sons, his life is destined to Isaac's life is destined to be not his own,
Mhm.
right? His sons. He
Right.
wants to give his blessing to Esau.
Mhm.
His wife, who shares a lot of the same characteristics that Abraham has. Mind you, Abraham set up the marriage, but never talked to Isaac.
Right.
They're not together. They're
Mhm.
not living together.
Mhm.
So you're not living in your father's house. Mind you, he's also not married. And when also moving to when Sarah dies and Isaac is mourning,
Mhm.
and then Rebecca comes, he takes Rebecca and sleeps in his mother's bed, not his mother, not anywhere else.
Right.
So it's to assume that he was living with his mother at the time, not with Abraham. What's
And
the importance of his mother's bed and not his father and his mother's bed?
right. And again, that's very well could be the case. I'm not saying that
Right,
it's not.
right. But there are like a lot of things that are alluding to, and if we're keeping the character consistent, if we're
Mhm.
keeping Isaac consistent as the character that he is,
Right.
there's nothing almost good at all that he finds in his life. It's kind of assumed that he likes or prefers Esau, the stronger son, well, physically stronger, hairy, more adept at hunting,
Mhm.
because he is everything that Isaac is not.
Mm.
There are a lot of different things at play as far as defining the characters.
Right.
And from this, I think it's pretty important when you don't mention things such an amazing text like this.
Mhm.
I think the authors knew what they were doing by not
Mhm.
mentioning certain things or mentioning certain things.
Mhm.
So I do feel comfortable with assuming that Abraham went back to Beersheba and
Mhm.
that Sarah was in Hebron. Isaac went back to Hebron, lived with his mother. I'm cool with there being contention. I don't see anything wrong with that.
Mhm.
I think it brings up a different question, which is, okay, what was the point?
So we know that God came to Abraham and Sarah and said that he was going to give them a child,
Mhm.
because he's going to make his descendants as numerous as the stars. So they obviously have to have a child. Abraham and Sarah don't see how God's going to do that with Sarah well beyond her years of giving birth. So she offers up Hagar, and they, Abraham and Hagar have a son, Ishmael. And then, God says, that's not what I had planned. Like, you didn't have faith in my plan that I was going to provide. And you kind of went and did your own thing, trying to put my plan into motion through your context.
Well, I think it was more of like, I have a plan. That's not it.
Right.
Not that it wasn't planned.
So because of that, though, if Abraham and Sarah would have trusted God from the beginning, do you even have the test on the mountain? Or is it they have to have that test? God has to test Abraham in that because Abraham failed in trusting God previous, and he has to know, are you fully willing to trust me on this now? Because you didn't fully trust before, and you tried to do it yourself. Now you've seen that I've given you your son. Are you going to fully trust me when I say you have to sacrifice him?
It's
Which is a
yeah.
consequence to not trusting God to begin with.
Well, I think them trying to have a son is not putting trust in God. It's saying, okay, this is the only way that we see a son being had, and if God said we're going to have a son, then I guess we'll go this route. I don't know if it's exactly disobedience, going an alternate route to fulfill what God already has planned, especially if God has a divine plan in motion that would seem impossible to a human being, even
Mhm.
though they've definitely seen God at work. And as far as, I mean, because Ishmael brings about Islam,
Mhm.
which is kind of interesting, going to Abraham's funeral, because then you have Ishmael and Isaac coming together
Right.
and communicating with each other at Abraham's funeral,
Mhm.
which is kind of in like a sign between the different nations, like, hey, like our forefathers were able to come together,
Mhm.
which is kind of cool to see peace in that way. But yeah, I don't know as far as I see that a lot. Yeah, I don't know about consequences by doing that, because obviously God protected Hagar and Ishmael
Mhm.
and took care of them.
Yep. I mean, blessed Ishmael and said that he was going to make a great nation out of
Yeah,
Ishmael's lineage as well.
yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know. I was thinking, consequence wise. So if I was to assume that Abraham did not go back to his wife or be with
Mhm.
his son, um, and he is living in Beersheba by himself,
Mhm.
right? If I were to take that stance, then the question becomes, so what was the point? Because the story is all about having many descendants, right?
Right.
But if I were to take Abraham and put him as a real human person, right, put him as an actual being
Mhm.
who existed his entire life, right, dedicated to this one son, right, he in a form betrays him by almost sacrificing him. And in Isaac's mind, I would say, since they don't talk ever again, and Isaac follows his character as always being the one betrayed, I would say that they never do. That means Abraham will never be able to see the promises that God has given him
Mhm.
as far as having descendants.
Right.
And to assume that he dies without seeing um, his wife. And
Mhm.
it doesn't mention Isaac there.
Mhm.
So Isaac at the funeral, unsure. It definitely mentions Abraham being at the funeral. He mourns over her.
Right.
So he's there. But so he doesn't see his family again.
Mhm.
Right. How do you as the reader interpret God's plan for his life if it ends this way?
First, I would say if the only reason of following God's plan is to seeing the fruit being bared from that plan, then are you really trusting and willing to follow God, or are you just looking to see the fruit?
It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying he gave up everything
And I understand that, right?
for
And
what God is calling him to do.
right.
He sees no
But
reward from it.
but God doesn't say that he's going to see a reward from it.
True.
He doesn't say, I'm going to give this to you and you're going to witness it.
But then he also ruins the relationships that he values.
Which makes me go back to, I wouldn't say that God ruined those.
Right.
I would say that those relationships could have been ruined because of actions taken earlier by Abraham and Sarah.
But then
They weren't willing to trust God fully. So because of that, it led to, because that maybe that's why he had to sacrifice Isaac to show that he was willing to trust God fully. But because of that, led to a disintegration in the relationship between him and Isaac and him and Sarah. But if they would have just trusted God fully from the beginning, none of that wouldn't have happened. So God fully fulfills his promise, but because of the actions of Abraham and Sarah, they don't fully live live it out how God would have intended it to be. There are consequences for the actions that they took, and because of that, things changed.
I don't know about. I don't know if these tests, because there's 7 of them. I don't know if these tests are consequences of prior actions, or if they're. I don't know. I don't even think that they're really supposed to be consequences. I think he just did the test wrong. And the whole Abraham at the last second to stop him from actually killing his son makes me think that that wasn't in the plan.
And if that was the case, even then, if that was the case, then the consequence of him doing that wrong was the disintegration of his relationship with Isaac and Sarah. So you could say, I mean, in either circumstance, that a wrong action led to, so there's a consequence for a missed action somewhere along the line. That if he was following God or fully followed what God had said, or then those things wouldn't have happened.
Right. Sorry, I'm going to try to find something.
I mean, it's a deep conversation, deep thought. So yeah, I mean, it's just because I think, I think we see this throughout everyone's life, throughout in the Old Testament, especially, where God says to do one thing and we choose to do something, even if it's a good action. And I'll bring up the Jonah one again, that, he tells Jonah to go to Nineveh. Jonah didn't want to go to Nineveh. Jonah wanted to go somewhere else and spread God's word. So it wasn't that his action was a bad action, just wasn't what God had planned and intended for him to do. And because of that, there was consequences to that. So I say, it's not always that when people disobey God, that there are these, that there are these nefarious actions that, it's always just pointing a finger at God and saying, I don't want to do things your way, and all that. I think many times that people have a good heart in what they're trying to do, but a lack of faith or trusting causes them to stray from God's plan with the best intentions. But because they're not willing to be patient, and I think that's part of Abraham's problem with the child, that they just weren't patient and waiting on God to deliver what he said he was going to, or provide a way. Because we see that God, provides a way all throughout Scripture.
Yeah.
He just doesn't leave people hanging to figure it out on their own. He opens the door for that. So
saying, like, the story is, well, there are consequences because of prior actions. Through much of the Old Testament, God has no problem cursing people and wrecking people and saying, you messed up here.
Right.
But for Abraham, it's like there's a really big soft spot. And nowhere does it say, Abraham, you're going to be cursed. It's, oh, by the way, Sarah, I heard you laugh behind the tent because you don't believe in me. And then she lies and says, I did not laugh, my Lord. Okay, right. Clearly you did. But there were no consequences mentioned. And in fact, he was blessed when he lied in Egypt, or whatever you'd like to call that, hurt the people there.
Right.
And then the other place, which I wish I remembered. And that was, I would say, from a place of doubt, to say that, I'm going to go to this land. I need you to tell everybody that you're my sister, so that things will go well for me.
Right.
right? So I'll be okay.
Hmm.
I mean, that's not exactly believing in God.
And again, like all of these decisions could have led up to that moment on the mountain.
Hmm.
That it wasn't just maybe one instance where he didn't follow or trust God, that he's shown this pattern in his life that he wasn't willing to trust God fully.
Hmm.
He's willing to trust him to when he says, "Hey Abraham, I want you to, leave Ur and head over to Canaan. Just pick up and go."
Hmm.
Okay, I'll do that. So he's willing to trust God, but he's not willing to fully trust God.
Yeah.
When he doesn't see how God's going to do something, like, he gets into Egypt and he doesn't see how they're not just going to kill him to take Sarah. Like, so he lies about it.
Yeah.
He basically does the exact same thing, right after he leaves Egypt and comes in. I think it's near Beersheba, where that happened, and does the exact same thing because he doesn't fully trust God to take care of him. And then he says that he's going to provide him a son, and he doesn't fully trust God. I think he believes that God's going to provide him a son, but doesn't fully trust that how God's going to do that. He's going to give Sarah a son. So he goes and makes his own way and sleeps with Hagar and has a son with her. And so there's this pattern of not fully trusting. And we get to this point where, God is saying, do you fully trust me? That I've promised you this. Descendants as numerous as the stars, and you have one son. Because I've already told you that Ishmael's not it.
Hmm.
So this is, for the context of the story, this is the son. So do you trust that even if I tell you to kill him, that I'm still going to provide and fulfill the covenant that I've made with you?
Through that son.
It doesn't mean necessarily it was through that son.
It does when God says specifically it's going to be
Through Isaac. Okay.
Yes.
So even then, like,
that's contradictory.
Right. But again, do you fully trust, even in the midst of that, do you fully trust me that I'm going to provide a way? So it's these.
So, and that kind of bringing up that God specifically chose Isaac as the son to bear the nation.
Mm-hmm.
So God says to him, Isaac is the one.
Right.
Okay. Go kill him.
Mm-hmm.
And a few chapters before, Abraham is willing to argue for the sake of, I think it is Sodom, where Lot is living at this time. He argues, was it 50? And then it went down by tens or
fives? Mm-hmm.
So he's arguing and saying, okay, if there are 50 righteous people, don't kill the city. I mean, he's very persuasive about it. And I think God opens his heart to be persuaded. But Abraham is willing to negotiate with God, right? At this time, when God clearly says to him, hey, Isaac's going to be the one. Later on, okay, now I need you to go kill him. Through him, he needs to die. So, well, not exactly like that. It's more or less just that son, yes, go kill him. Sacrifice him in the region of Moriah.
Mm-hmm.
If Abraham was willing to argue for Lot's sake, I would feel better if he made some kind of logical argument at that point.
Well, we don't know. He may have, because it just, when you look at it in the scripture, it just says, God says, this is what I want you to go do. And then it stops and cuts to the very next morning, and Abraham's going to do it. So we don't know the conversation.
Well, Abraham doesn't just go do it. He goes and he cuts all the wood necessary.
Right.
He goes and he collects the things.
Right. But we're talking, we've jumped a day.
Right.
So we don't know that conversation. We don't know. Maybe they had a big drag out, fight. about this.
As far as God is concerned, he's always mentioned in the conversation when one is had.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't think
'Cause
there's
we
a
have-
point in there
At
saying
this
like,
point, there's no response from Abraham at all.
yes, it's
So
just,
we don't know what his response was.
well, clearly if he got up the next day and was
we
cutting
do, but we
wood,
don't know how
yeah.
how he came to that.
Mhm.
I mean, there are many times where God has, said, "I want you to go do this," and I'm like, "I don't want to do this," and we hash it out, but I always submit and do what God is leading me to go do. And we could have easily had one of those conversations here, and for the sake of the story that's being told, we don't necessarily needed to hear that conversation. We just, you know what I mean? Like we don't always hear, do I feel that even then, like every conversation between Abraham and God has been written down, or between God and everyone. Like there
Right.
are conversations that have been had that aren't recorded in the Bible. So,
But there is one conversation that is recorded later between, well, it's a prayer to God from Jacob.
mhm,
Jacob is returning to his brother Esau
mhm,
with his things. He split them up and sent them ahead of him. And then finally he would meet his brother, Jacob.
right.
But he says this prayer, and I wouldn't say he calls God out, but he reminds God of the promises that God gave him.
Mhm.
Let's see if I can find it. Um, O God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, "Go back to your country and your relatives, and I will make you prosper." I am unworthy of all the kindness and faithfulness you have shown your servant. I had only my staff when I crossed this Jordan, but now I have become two groups. Save me, I pray, from the hand of my brother Esau, for I am afraid he will come and attack me, and also the mothers with their children. But you have said, I will surely make you prosper, and will make your descendants like the sand of the sea, which cannot be counted. That's Genesis 32, 7 through 12.
Mhm.
I mean, he reminds God of the promises.
Right.
Specifically,
Mhm.
Abraham was cut off, removed from the spirit, didn't have the opportunity to make that statement. I feel like if
And
the
I don't,
argument can be made, why wasn't it?
but we don't know that it wasn't.
Was
That-
God going to tell him no?
I think that was my, and I think it could have been, "Hey, this is what you've promised me," and God could have said, "Do you trust me? Because here you didn't trust me, here you didn't fully trust me, here you didn't fully trust me. Do you fully trust me?" And Abraham says, "Yes, I fully trust you," and gets up the next morning and goes to do it. So, I mean, to say that we don't have a recorded conversation of that doesn't mean that there was one. And do we need
True.
to hear Abraham and God hash this out?
Yes.
Maybe for you, you need to hear that. For me, I don't necessarily need to hear them hash it out to know that there was a decision being made.
I don't need it, but I would like it for the sake of Abraham.
Oh, there's a lot of things I would like
Yeah.
for the sake of a lot of people,
Specifically because of what I previously just mentioned, as far as Abraham not living with his family afterwards. That separation.
right.
If he had tried, if that was how the test was truly intended,
Mhm.
I would have liked to see something there. Instead, it says Abraham's blessed. By the way, he's returning down the mountain
Mhm.
and he's living in Beersheba.
Right.
I don't understand exactly why the text is worded this way, but it's like you see the picture, but it's not moving the way that it says it's supposed to go. Like it's
Mhm.
trying to convince you of something that's not there.
Right. And I think we have to remember that biblically we're to tell the Bible's there to tell a greater story. So we are hearing parts of the story of Abraham that we need to hear to tell a greater story.
Well, I think if this is a book of learning,
So it
then
doesn't mean that
questions
we're
like this are something that we need to
right. So
wrestle with.
and so I think some of those things aren't in there because they're not key components to the greater story that's being told. And if we get focused on these other smaller things, it takes our focus off the bigger picture. So I think you can get too narrowly focused on certain things that when you do that, you forget about the bigger thing that you're supposed to be focused on.
Are you saying that I'm not focused on this
No,
appropriately?
but I think that's why certain things aren't
Looked into?
I think are not written about. Not that they weren't necessarily important, but they didn't advance the greater story being told.
I think there are lessons far greater in things that are not said than those that are basically written down.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that most of Genesis, most of the Old Testament, I feel like we need to stop treating them like kids' stories.
Oh, I fully
right.
agree with that. Yes.
So I think that with this in mind, if it's PG-13, rated R, whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
it's not E for everyone. If it is written for specific maturity in mind, I feel like then we need to approach it like that. And I think we do a disservice every time we read the Bible and say, okay, that's exactly how I read it last time, and that's the way it's supposed to be before.
Right.
But then you start noticing these things that are not the same, or that you've never noticed before, like the fact that they are not together.
Right.
And I would say because of that, being the book that it is for the people that it's written, or for the people that it is written for, I think it's important for us to look at these details that are missing.
Right. And I think that
no matter how small they are.
Right. And I think the things that you're bringing up are good and important because I think it brings a level of humanity to somebody that a biblical character that we've maybe put on a pedestal to a point, and that saying that Abraham was this great and perfect person with this perfect life, because we read about all the times that he was blessed and all that, where when we really are looking at it critically, we see that there were parts of his life, yes, that was just
human.
That we don't have to have this perfect life and be perfectly blessed all the time and have all this great stuff for God to do great things through our life. God made a covenant with Abraham that he was going to, bless him and make a great nation through his descendants, which he did.
Both the descendants.
Yes. Does that mean that meant Abraham was going to have this great life? I think Abraham made decisions that led to consequences that led to not great things happening in his life. And I think that's just part of being human. We're not always going to make the right decisions, and because of that, we may have consequences in our life that we don't like, that may lead to us being estranged from family, or whatever. But it doesn't mean that God's still not going to be able to use you to do great things through your life.
Right. And I think a lot of that's relatable. I feel like a lot of people that are watching this may be estranged from family members and may connect with this on a deeper level, either being the one that was hurt or the person that hurt. I think that there's a message in there for someone who felt betrayed by a parent.
Right.
Or a parent who felt like
they betrayed their child.
Exactly. There's so many little things in there that I feel like we need to stop looking at. And mind you, like, I think that Abraham was chosen by God 100% to be the father of all the descendants, right? I think that he was chosen for that part specifically. He was faithful at the beginning. He followed, but we have to remember that he's as human as the rest of us in the story. And as Christians, I feel like we've heightened him to something that he's something that he's not, which I would say like perfect.
Right.
Um, and I think when we look at him as a human, I feel like we're able to look at his life
Mhm.
and compare someone who's faithful and righteous in God's eyes and see that in ourselves.
Because I do think that there's obvious times that Abraham took tremendous leaps of faith
Yeah.
that allowed him to be as blessed as he was.
hmm
And we have to see both sides and look at both sides of it. You know, how Abraham took those great leaps of faith and was blessed for it.
hmm
And those times that he didn't take that leap of faith and there were consequences for it. Life wasn't great in certain areas because of decisions he made.
And my final thought, kind of about Abraham living the life that he did,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to note that he was faithful to God to the very end.
Right.
And so, if my original question was, okay, why would Abraham want, if he saw everything that would go on the way that it did years beforehand, would he do it the same way?
Mm-hmm.
And my thought would be yes. And that makes me think, or that kind of proves to me that there was something beyond death for Abraham.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, the descendants, yes, but I feel like the part of having children,
Mm-hmm.
having descendants, is to watch them, be with them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that this also points to there being somewhat of a heaven
Mm-hmm.
or hell in Abraham's mind.
Right.
I think this is kind of like the first part of evidence, because otherwise, what's the point,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's a good conversation. Definitely was good. I'm exhausted from it. Which is a good thing.
Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, when you have those good conversations that just you put all yourself into it and kind of hashed it out, worked your way through things and got to the end. And
Which now I realize is not your cup of tea.
so yeah. It's like running a marathon.
Yeah.
It's exhausting, but you've accomplished something good at the end. You worked hard throughout and you get to the end and you've accomplished something that went really well, and but you're tired from it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely good. So we'll wrap that up there, and we'll let you guys know what we're gonna bring up next week. We'll talk about that, and I'll let you guys know. But before we head out for the evening, I want to let you guys know about our social media. So you can catch us on Tuesdays as we record live on Twitch about 6:30. Well, we'll just call it 6:30 because that's usually closer to when it is. And you can follow us on twitch.tv/wrestling with our faith. And then if you can't catch us live, you can always catch us on YouTube. We usually have posted our video within an hour or so, as long as I hit record right after we get done recording it. And you can do that on YouTube at Wrestling with Our Faith. And while you're there, subscribe, give us a like, and leave us a comment beyond, hopefully, that you want to be entered in our contest, because we want you entered in our contest for a $50 Amazon gift card. So yeah, just bring it full circle. So go do that. Go to our YouTube page. Again, subscribe, give us a like, leave us a comment. Let us know how we're doing. If you enjoyed it, if you didn't enjoy it, what you got out of it, any other angles that we may not have thought of that you have. We'll definitely engage with you in the conversation in the comments section about the video. So the video just doesn't end when we finish recording. It continues on in the comments if you guys have questions and all that. So definitely leave those comments down there so we can continue on the great dialogue. And we can also catch us on Instagram at Wrestling with Our Faith, and Twitter at Wrestling Hour. And our Facebook page. We have a Facebook page, and I never put it on here. I don't know why, but you can go to our Facebook page at Wrestling with Our Faith, and give us a follow on there as well. And so you can do those things. So yeah, so we have that. And my camera froze again. What is going on?
No.
This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. I don't know what is going on. I'm going to have to work on that. It was working almost the entire time. And I just realized, I don't know. Who knows? But
I mean, it looks like a LinkedIn profile picture. So
yeah, I mean, it's funny because it's always my camera
yeah,
that always freezes. That's so weird that always happens, but it is what it is, I guess. So,
I mean, it's a good picture.
Yeah. So just to let you guys know about our scheduling in the upcoming weeks, next week we'll be back as scheduled. But the following week, on the 9th of February, I believe it is, we will not be live that week as I will be on vacation, but we still look to have a video to put up for you guys. So stay tuned for that. There will be some type of content for you guys on the 9th. And then we'll be back to our regularly scheduled programming the following week on the 16th. Look at me do math in my head real quick.
That was good.
I know. Doing those multiplications of 7 on odd numbers.
Yeah.
So that's our schedule moving forward. So we look forward to it. Yeah. So you got any big plans this week, Josh? Let me guess. You're gonna study and do homework for school and rest.
Yeah, but I'm also gonna go to work.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
How about you?
Just doing work, probably. We have our men's ministry is putting on an escape room fundraiser, and I'm in charge of that and have a lot to do before our first weekend on the 20th of February. So yeah, I got a lot to get done still.
It's less than a month.
I know. I mean,
Not to remind you, you already know.
I know it's going to easily get done, but it's just there's still plenty of things to do between now and then. So with a vacation in the middle of it, but yeah, so that's what I have planned. There's no football on this week, so there's no doing that. So yeah, maybe watch some hockey. Miss hockey.
Yeah.
Too bad my team stinks. I had so many good years of great hockey here in Detroit, but unfortunately, I mean, you can't be great forever. So gotta take our lumps now and be back in a few years, hopefully.
You know, it's a resting period. You just gotta
exactly. You know, it's our Sabbath period.
Yeah.
You know, we have to rest. Let other teams win.
I mean, it would be terrible if we won all the time. We have to be nice sometimes.
Exactly.
So,
you know. So, you know, yeah. But so that's what I have planned, and it'll be good. I say, just looking to get to that vacation. That's my plan. Counting down the days.
So, because you used to watch like The Office,
yes,
on Netflix, like all the time.
All the time
in the background. It was just
exactly.
there.
It's always background.
Since it's now on Peacock, and you get the first 2 seasons free. Mind you, the first season is absolutely trash, garbage.
I'd say it's garbage. It's just, it's not the same because they did basically a shot-for-shot remake of the British version,
right? And then they started to branch out and create their own.
Right. So you lose a lot of character development. Then they're kind of pigeon-toed into the way certain characters acted and all that. But
even so, Peacock gives you the first and second seasons,
right?
And then you have to purchase the other ones.
Yeah.
You haven't.
I haven't yet. No.
So do you think? I mean, I was about to ask: is there another show that you're watching right now that replaces or even comes close?
Nothing that comes close, but I have branched out and started watching some other things. So I was watching the Clone Wars, Star Wars,
There
because
you
I had
go.
never seen that before.
Ooh,
So there were 7 seasons of that, and so I finished that like 2-3 weeks ago. Right around the first of the year is when I finished it.
wow.
So that was really thoroughly enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Now I'm in the middle of watching Rebels, so I'm in the middle of season 2.
Cool.
So doing that because the shows I normally watch aren't on television. So yeah,
Interesting.
I'm waiting for the Flash to start,
Oh yeah.
but that's not until March. So I still got like 5-6 weeks before that starts.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what I'm doing. I mean, watching WandaVision,
I heard that was fantastic.
it's good. It's different. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's a good weird, especially if you're familiar with the premise of things that it's copying. I don't want to spoil anything, but
I hear it's like old TV show.
yeah, they kind of are
Copies.
spoofing. Yeah, but at each episode, it's a different one as it's progressing throughout, through time.
Mhm.
And so if you're familiar with those shows, and you see the humor of things that they're copying and all that, and but I think it's going to be similar to how The Mandalorian the past season was, where it was a little slow at the beginning and then picked up in a hurry
Yeah.
and finished fantastic.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be very similar in WandaVision
Interesting.
because it's been a little slower. It's been good, but it's been slower. But they're laying the groundwork, and I think it's going to just come episode 4 or 5 right in there. It's just going to go from 0 to 100 and just leave your jaw on the floor.
Excellent.
That's my feeling on it, because it's all leading into Doctor Strange 2. So I mean, it's even then, like when the season's over, it's still leading into something that's coming relatively in the near future.
That's cool.
And I think it's setting up a lot of things in the Marvel Cinematic Universe moving forward. So it's kind of I think the tipping point for all of Phase 4, and it's just starting here. So I think it's going to be a big finish that's just going to open everything up, open the can of worms, so to speak.
Ooh.
I know.
It's
So-
interesting seeing how movies are now kind of on the back burner and TV shows are taking over.
Yeah. Because, I mean, I hate not being at the movies. It sucks.
Mhm.
I'm a big movie person, so not being in the theater, things continually get pushed back. It's just awful. Just saw the trailer for Godzilla vs. King Kong, which was just phenomenal. So I'm hoping things are up and running back to normal
Yeah.
come March, so I can go to the theater and see that, because that's a movie you just got to see in the theater.
Well, so far, I think February 1st is when restaurants are supposed to be opening up at 25% capacity.
Yeah.
right
So
now.
movie theaters are open, but it's not that because they're not open. It's just they keep pushing releases back.
Mhm.
So there's really no good movies to go see. So I'm part of the AMC Stubs package, which they're A-list. So I can, when my membership's up to date and current, I can go see 3 movies a week for $20 a month.
Mhm.
But there's no, I'm just leaving my membership on pause right now because there's nothing out in the theaters. Until they force me to start picking it up again, I'm
Yeah.
not going to do it until they force me to, or they start putting good movies out in theaters again, or at least some movies out in theaters. I mean, they just have a lot of reshowing old movies, which is okay, but I don't know if I want to spend money to watch some old stuff.
I might have it on disc at home.
Right. And then because restaurants are closed, this is the dumbest thing ever. So because restaurants are closed, you can't even eat snacks in the theater.
Oh my.
Yeah, which is the dumbest thing.
That correlates? That's
Apparently, because I can sit 6 feet from somebody and watch a movie, but I can't 6 feet from somebody, watch a movie and eat popcorn. It's so
I mean, you just gotta
it just
obviously
doesn't make sense,
you
and
can't
it is what it
buy
is.
food
But
there, but just bring your like massive purse that holds your wallet,
right,
your extra pair of pants, your
exactly,
snacks, popcorn,
exactly.
bowl, vending machine, the entire thing.
Yeah. So a lot of things in this world that just don't make any sense, and it is what it is, and just roll with the punches.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So hopefully things will. I know it's like I was looking forward to going on vacation to where I could go to some restaurants while I'm there, and then things are opening up here. I'm like, of course, like
Yeah.
I could do that now here, but yeah. But I'll be doing some other stuff when I'm down there on vacation, going to Disney, seeing Star Wars Land.
That's
Can't-
cool.
That's going to be fantastic. Can't wait.
Yeah.
Hit Universal. Do some of that.
That's not Galaxy's Edge, right?
Yeah, it is.
That is.
Yep.
I hear that's absolutely fantastic.
Exactly. And with the park only running like 50% capacity, it's not going to be slammed.
Yeah.
And I'm going on like a Monday or a Tuesday, so it's going to be really light.
Kids have school. you know,
Exactly.
got the full work 9 to 5.
Exactly.
There you
So I'm hoping, yeah, it should be a good time when I'm there. Build a nice lightsaber.
I was about to ask.
Of course, I'm building a lightsaber.
You had to. Why would I ask? I'm sorry. That was.
I mean, if you're
foolish
going
of me.
there, you have to build a lightsaber. Like, you can't go there and not build a lightsaber.
right.
So that is definitely one of the top things
Am I
I'm
li-
looking forward to.
Am I allowed to ask? What's your color?
You're just gonna have to find out. I mean, I will bring it on the podcast when I'm back,
Oh my goodness.
and we'll do an unveiling.
I mean, that sounds sick to me. That sounds sick to me. I'm
Yeah.
game.
So, and then you will see what color it will be.
If for no other reason, you come and watch our channel. I mean, if you think what we talk about is absolute garbage, I mean, coming for the lightsaber, that's
If you think our show is garbage and you've gotten this deep into the podcast to hear this, I really applaud you. You are a better man than me.
generous.
But
Generous
I'll
subscription.
probably build a droid as well
Hey,
because I have that.
Yeah.
So I'll do that. All the fun little things.
Yeah. Well, speaking of bonus content, I guess.
Yeah. So you guys get some bonus content. Yay.
Excellent.
Yep. So, all right, guys. Well, we're well past our normal. That's not too bad. Only an hour and 10.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
So, we will see you guys next week. Peace out.